Today we celebrate the memorial of St. John Chrysostom, and I am particularly fond of this saint because a biography that I read of him is my all-time favorite saint's life. I was looking for the biography in English because it was originally written by a Romanian author, and I haven't found it yet. But I'll spend some more time because it's really worth it, at least for me. So I want to tell you 3 interesting episodes about the life of St. John Chrysostom, and we'll try to find a lesson for our day today. So he became the Bishop of Constantinople, and he lived in the 4th and 5th century, and on those days the Roman Empire was so big that they had to divide it in two. So Rome was one of the capital cities and Constantinople was the other capital city, and he became the bishop of one of the most important cities in the world. He didn't look for this position. In fact, he had been a monk for many years, and he was a very penitent man. He wasn't looking for fame but God wanted that he become a bishop. So 3 episodes. You know what was the first decision he took when he became a bishop? He went to the palace of the bishop that was going to become his house, and he sold all of the furniture and all of the gold that was in the palace, and he had many servants, and he told all of the servants to go away because he wasn't a prince, he was a bishop. And he decided to live only with one of his fellow monks, and they ate once a day, and the other monk was in charge of the cooking, but there wasn't a lot of job for the other monk because they didn't eat much. So when the first bishop came to visit St. John Chrysostom, and St. John said, "You can stay with me in the palace," the other bishop felt offended. Because when he came into his room, he was expecting, a beautiful bed and everything, and he found out that he was being treated like a fellow monk. So right from the first day, St. John Chrysostom started to make enemies. Not because he was looking for enemies, but because he understood that he could not please men and God. And he wanted to please God as a bishop. Second episode of his life. Perhaps the second measure that he took when he became a bishop. Back in those days, the priests had normally a woman that lived with them that could help them with the cooking and, with the house chores. And St. John Chrysostom said, "From now on, no priest is allowed to have a woman in his house." And the priests got angry with St. John Chrysostom, because they wanted to have someone to help them. But St. John Chrysostom thought it was a very bad idea for a priest to have a woman in his house, and probably he was right. So not only was he enemies of the bishop who came to live or spend time in his palace, but he became enemy with most of the priests from his diocese. Probably nowadays we would say, well, that's not a good strategy. But I insist, St. John Chrysostom understood he either pleased God or he pleased men. He knew he couldn't please both at the same time. Third episode. The empress decided to make a huge statue of herself outside of John Chrysostom's church. A huge statue. And initially, he tried to, look to a different place, not mind the statue. But when the statue was revealed, the empress, she said for there to be many celebrations, and the people of Constantinople were given a lot of wine and alcohol. And St. John Chrysostom reminded himself, I cannot please men and God. So he preached against the statue and he preached against the empress. And guess what? He got exiled. And when he was in the exile, he died. In fact, he got exiled twice. On the second occasion is that he died. As an old man being exiled and, walking into a place of his final destination. But again, St. John Chrysostom understood that he could not please men and God at the same time. And he didn't want to please the empress, he wanted to please God. So I was thinking, probably in our own lives, we're not going to find ourselves so frequently in the same position of St. John Chrysostom of having to choose between pleasing men and pleasing God. I think that for a bishop, that situation is going to be more frequently found than for ourselves. But I think that every now and then, lay people and a priest and a parish priest also have to take a decision between pleasing men and pleasing God. And let us ask today for St. John Chrysostom the strength to always choose God, no matter what consequences this will entail.